Let's talk about Nevuah, prophecy. Prophecy in our time, that's an unbelievable idea. But when it comes to Parsha Shoftim, there are a lot of parts to it. There's prophecy, the return of prophecy. Has prophecy come back? Nevuah, has it come back or not? That's one question. And also, is it here? Is it not here? Was it once upon a time? And what does this have to do with Shoftim and Shoftim? With judges and motivation. If you could say in this Sikha, in this Parsha, there are really two major points. One is all about motivation. How do you motivate yourself to follow the rules that you've either made for yourself or someone else made for you? How do you motivate yourself? That's a whole revolutionary thought in Parsha Shoftim, which we'll leave for a different day. And then there's a whole part about Nevuah, about prophecy. And how do the two of them come in the same Parsha? How are they connected? So let's explore it and see. So, an example we see there's the words of Torah and the words of Nevuah. I mean, the words of Torah come from Hashem from above coming down. You open up a Chumash, you open up a Sefer, and you're learning holy words that, in a sense, the fact is that you could fit them into a book with a cover and a certain number of letters is pretty amazing, because it's essentially godly stuff from above. Torah is essentially godly wisdom. The fact that it can be brought down here into the world is unbelievable. But so it's called milamayla lamata, from above to below. And then there's what's called milamata lamayla, from below to above, and that's nevuah, prophecy. How is that from below to above? Those who were prophets, there were times when many people in the generation were prophets. 22,000 prophets. They had prophecy schools. And the Navi would, so to speak, reach up to Hashem and have, so to speak, a private conversation with Hashem in a most powerful way. So he's reaching up to Hashem. And this is like the difference between the words of the Parsha, Shoftim v'Shoftim, Shreif Tayach and Yotzayach. There is a Shofet. He's the one who tells you the rule, and he brings it from above. A Shofet is the one who paskins the rule, and he's way above your level. He's coming from a godly wisdom from above down. Remember, we're just analyzing now from up to down or down to up. Words and a Shofet, Torah and a Shofet come from up to down. Now, the advisor who's on your level, and he's looking up to lift you up, that's from down to up. And an example of that would also be Nevuah, prophecy. Okay. With that in mind, let's look at just a few thoughts here. Torah is higher than the world. It's the Chachma of Hashem, as we say. And it comes down into this world. And if you say a Torah Chiddush is on your name, etc., it comes down in a way of what's called tzivui, zakdin. Let's make sure we're recording. Okay, so now let's go into prophecy, Nevuah. It is the word of Hashem, and it's a revelation of Hashem down here to creations. Gila Saida Elavadav Neviim, as it says in Amos. In Amos, right. In there, that means it's the secrets of Hashem revealed down here through his Neviim on their level in the world. And for a person to be a Navi, a prophet in those days, they had to all have all the conditions of being a Chacham, a Gibor, etc. All kinds of conditions. You couldn't just decide you were going to be a Navi. And it has to be B'daito v'sichle of the Navi. It has to be with his vessels, so to speak, him, the person, actually in a body, with his das, his understanding, his brain, his intellect. But he becomes one with the words of Hashem. But he remains who he is. Now, the interesting thing is, other than Moshe Rabbeinu, the Nevi'im, I guess their bodies couldn't quite sustain such a level of godliness coming into their physical bodies. So when they would receive Nevuah, they would tend to kind of fall down roll around, froth at the mouth. They couldn't just sit there and speak to Hashem openly, except for Moshe Rabbeinu. And we know, for instance, when it came to Avram Avinu, he sat. He sat. He sat. He didn't fall on the ground. He sat, and he had a revelation of Hashem. That we have, the Parsha at Vayera. But in general, Nevi'im would kind of fall down. Their bodies couldn't handle such a revelation. But the godliness would be mislabeshes b'sichlim v'asagatam b'mar nevuva gam b'machshavtam v'diburim, as it says, right? It would be in their mind, in their intellect. And as it says, Ruach Hashem diber bi milsa malsa al l'shayni. The Ruach of Hashem is speaking within me. And the thing about nevuah, about prophecy, is it comes out in speech, dibur. Kol lashon nevuah, adam hamakus mashpil am v'u migzeres mitzvayim. Nevuah means speech. Torah is different. Torah can remain in thought. By the way, we're learning the Sikh of Parsha Shoftim, Zayin Elul, Tafshin Nun Aleph. So, nevuah can remain in thought. And also the whole point of nevuah, the taichen of nevuah, is it has a connection to the world. As it says in the Rambam, Perek Yud, it says, Ein hanavi omed ela lo yedi'enu dvarim ha'asidim lias ba'olam. What is the Navi here to tell us? To tell us future things that will be in the world. Not things outside of our world, in the world. There will be a war, there won't be a war. You will encounter this, you won't encounter that. On our level, there words of Hashem being sent through the Navi down to us about worldly stuff that relates to us in war. It really makes a difference to a person if there's going to be a war or not, God forbid. That's our world. I'm not talking about spiritual wars. I'm talking about stuff in the world. So we see the difference between Torah and Nevuah. Torah is above the world, Nevuah is from within the world. So it's like the difference between Shoftaich and Yotzayich. A Shofet, he's here to pass in a din in Torah. That comes from above, Tzivui and Gezerah. A Yayetz, an advisor, gives an advice which is enclosed in the levushim, in the levushim of the person who hears it. You give advice, you're a Yayetz, you give advice to somebody, and you make it user-friendly, so to speak. Like Nevuah, as it says, and it's connected with Klayas, Yo'atus, Netzach, and Haid, and those parts of the body. Kidneys, I think, those places of judgment, I'm not sure. Klayas, Yo'atus, Netzach, and Haid. And the Navi is not a Shofet. He's not above the world. He's in the world on our level, but he's receiving Hashem's word, reaching up. He gives you, what does a Navi do? What is a Yayetz? He gives you good advice. If he doesn't give you good advice, if he doesn't give you advice you can use, it's maybe not good advice for you. He's an advisor. What is a Navi? He's also an advisor. He's telling us, Hashem is saying, this is going to happen. Do the following. Do that. So the Yayetz gives you advice about how to act in the world. So does the Navi. Dvarim hasidim lias bailim. The Navi is telling you about future things that will be in the world, like go to this place, go to that place, do a war, don't do a war, do this, don't do that. And just like there's a command to follow the Shofet, the Shofet in every generation, all times, we have a command to follow the Shofet, the one who tells us the halacha, the din. How do we know? It says in our parsha. It says, "Ubasa l'Shofet asher yeh bayamim heim," and come to the Shofet in those days. And the same thing with Nevi'im. It says later in the parsha, Navi mikir b'cha me'achicha kamaini yakim l'cha Hashem l'kecha elav tishman. I will, Hashem says in the Parsha, in Parsha Shoftim, Yud Ches, Tesvav, I will stand up, so to speak, a Navi from among you, from your brothers. He will be one of you guys, says Hashem in the Parsha. But he will be like me, says Hashem. Yakim lecha kamaini. Moshe Rabbeinu says, kamaini. Yakim lecha Hashem Elokecha. There will be a Navi from among your brothers, like me, and Hashem will put him there. Yakim lecha Hashem Elokecha. What should you do? You will see that Hashem creates Nevi'im, brings Nevi'im from among you, but they will be like me. What should you do? Elef Tishman. Listen to them. Listen to them. As the Rambam says in Sefer Amada, it's one of the foundations of Das that Hashem gives Nevuah to people. And about the mitzvah to follow the Navi, as it says there, the details. And since the Rambam brings that in Sefer Hilchot Halachos, and with great length, and it says it's one of the Yesodei Hadas, it's understood that that's a halacha that is for all generations. It's interesting that Chazal say in Yoma, from the time that the Nevi'im, Chagai, Zechariah, and Malachi passed away, there's no more Ruach HaKodesh among the Yidden. It went up. It went up to a more spiritual place. It wasn't down here so much anymore, but it didn't disappear. It just moved up a few levels. And says the Rebbe in Likutei Sichos it said, the pshat, meaning, es ist nicht batel gewesen lagamre. Ruach HaKodesh was not batel. It wasn't destroyed. It didn't end. How do you know it didn't end? Because we see that there was Hashras Ruach HaKodesh by several people in certain times. I guess around the time of the Nevuah, look in Sharei Kedusha, etc. There were times when after the time of the Nevi'im, there was Ruach HaKodesh. And the Rambam brings it. And the Rambam says there are certain conditions for what would qualify a person to be a Navi. But there were no conditions about when. Kena Tanaim v'neget zman nevuah. Mishamesa Nevi'im achrein. The Rambam does not bring any conditions about when the time of Nevuah would come back and would be. And therefore, the Rambam writes in the Igeres Teiman that in a certain year, Achzar Nevuah Yisrael, in a certain year, Nevuah would come back. There is no question that the bringing back of Nevuah is the preparation for Mashiach, as it says, V'nivu b'neichem u'b'nei seichem. As it says in Yael, your brothers, your sons and your daughters will prophesy. And so we're understanding that in Yemot Mashiach, Nevuah will come back to everybody, or most people, or many people. And Nevuah was at least 1,000 years ago. Nevuah was in the time of, the Nevi'im, Chagei, Zechariah, etc. Up until that time, Nevuah was very common. They had schools for Nevi'im. And the Nevuah did not leave. It went up to a higher level, and there were instances of Nevuah of Ruach HaKodesh throughout the years, as is delineated by the Rambam, etc. And, as the Rebbe is saying, there is no question that Nevuah coming back is the preparation for Mashiach. So from that we understand when you see Nevuah coming back, interesting. You understand we're in the preparatory phases, the preparatory moments of Mashiach. And an interesting thing, I'm just going to make a comment. An interesting thing that you see is that, I'm not going to call it Nevuah, but you see that in the past, I would say since Chot Shvat, since Shoftim Prophecy, the past 30 years or so, the ability of regular people to do intuitive healing and effective intuitive healing has proliferated in the world, and not only among the Jewish people. Why not only among the Jewish people? Not sure. Is it called Nevuah when it's not among Yidden? I don't know. But you see an interesting phenomenon, the ability for people to do, many people. People train in healing modalities, and you see many people doing highly effective intuitive healing. It's not Baba Mises. They have healing. How's that possible? But the point is not the healing. The point is the intuitiveness. Where's that coming from? It's like a foretaste, if you want to say, of Nevuah, of that, that communication, that reaching up to Hashem and the accessing kaiches that normally for the very, very righteous. So here's the question. Where does this take us to now? I mean, how is this practically applicable? Well, we just said, but what is the Rebbe saying in the Sikha about how this is practically applicable? And the Rebbe says, "V'geshlona der bir b'zeh is move on." So how do we explain this? The idea of the yotzayich v'atchila. It says, "Hashiva she'ftayich v'atchila v'yotzayich v'rishayna." Or Hashiva she'ftayich v'rishayna v'yotzayich v'atchila. Bring back your shaitim and your yoatim. Bring back those who were the advisor, those who were the ones who told us what the rules are in Torah, what Hashem's rules are, and bring back the yoatim, the advisors. And a very interesting thing, here's the Rebbe saying, in order for us to be able to take in the revelations of Yemaisa Mashiach, what would you need? We're just going to wow, all of a sudden there are all these revelations in Yemaisa Mashiach. How would we know when we're getting them? How would we have the vessels to pick them up? Wouldn't they be on a frequency that only great tzaddikim will pick up? So in order to take in and recognize those revelations, there has to be a beginning of it in the Avaidim now, in this time, on the level of Yotzayach, like Nevuah, advisors. By them Adam. There has to be a flowing down of godliness, like Eitzah, that is received by the person. That's the way it was with Nevuah. There would be a godly flow coming from Hashem down to the Navi. It's like the way it really was once upon a time. There has to be such a thing coming back, such a phenomenon coming back, to prepare us for Yemaisa Mashiach, to enable us to take in the revelations as they start to come into the world of Yemaisa Mashiach. There will be that will enable us to take in a pneumistic way, the revelation of Elokus in Yemaisa Mashiach. Those revelations of Yemaisa Mashiach coming from above and coming from below, what will enable us to do that? So there will be a beginning of this that will be received by people which will enable us to take in a very deep inner way these revelations. And therefore, it's a halacha l'dairos that in the time of Golus, in Golus, one of the foundations of Das is to know that Hashem gives nevuah to us. It's always shaykh that there be the revelation of nevuah down here. It's always possible that there's a level of nevuah down here, all the way to the level of Moshe Rabbeinu's nevuah. Navi akim lehem mikerav achiem kamaycha. Says Hashem, I will give them a navi. It says in our parsha, from among their brothers, like you, Moshe Rabbeinu. That's the shleimus of the inyan of nevuah. That's the complete inyan of nevuah, as the Rambam explains at great length. And that's why the Rambam speaks about the way, the type of nevuah of Moshe Rabbeinu. Why is there an explanation of that in the Sefer of Hilchos Halachos for Yidden in all the generations? Why do we have to know about the type of nevuah of Moshe Rabbeinu now? Why do we have to know now? If that was for then, well, why do we need to know now? And if that's for the time of Mashiach, when Moshe Rabbeinu will be with us, then Moshe Rabbeinu will tell us himself. Why do we need to know what was then and what will be in the future? Why does it need to be a halacha? A halacha now. Not just a piece of information, a halacha. And the answer is, the Chol HaDairos in all generations, even before Tchias HaMesim of Moshe Rabbeinu, is Nagea the halacha to know Hakel Menabe Es Bnei Adam. Hashem gives nevuah to man. Gili Elokus B'Gidra and Nivran. Godliness on our level. This is Shleimus B'Zev, that is given by Moshe. The completeness, the way it was in Moshe Rabbeinu's times. And not only that, in every generation, Navi Akim Lahem Kamaycha. Says Hashem to Moshe Rabbeinu, I will give them a Navi like you, Moshe Rabbeinu. As the Rambam explains, any Navi after Moshe Rabbeinu, why do we believe in him? Because of his signs and wonders and miracles? No. Then why? Why do we believe in him? Because Moshe Rabbeinu gave us that mitzvah in the Torah and said, "As yedin navi is a hemshech the nevuas Moshe v'Torah." Every navi is a continuation of the nevuah of Moshe and his Torah, as it says in L'Kutei Sichos Chelik Yud Tes Amud 185. Every navi. But in them gili, in the revelation of the nevuah, then there are levels. Not everybody, I'd like to be a navi, boom, I'm a navi. There are obviously levels and levels and levels. And it requires tremendous amount of, conditions. One doesn't just, wake up in the morning. There are all kinds of levels and all kinds of conditions to what one needs to do and the avodah you need to do to merit that nevuah. And then there's kind of, you want to say, the baby nevuah, which you see happening in the world today, which is people are having insights that regular people didn't used to have before. You want to call it the baby stuff? Okay. And the Rambam explains this, that this will happen. And after it says, Tachzor Nevuah Yisrael, Nevuah will come back. That's Hakdamas Mashiach. That is the preparation for Mashiach. The Nevuah that will be by Mashiach Tzidkenu, that Navi Gadol Hu Karav L'Moshe Rabbeinu. The Rambam says in Hilchos Tshuva, Navi, Moshe Rabbeinu will be a great Navi, close to the level of Moshe Rabbeinu. Interesting, close to the level of Moshe Rabbeinu. And Chazal say, Gal Rishon Gal Achron. The first Redeemer, Moshe Rabbeinu, is also the last. In every generation, there is somebody who is fit to be this. And therefore, we have to know as a halacha in this time, before the Gula, As is dodi metzias from Gilui Nevuah b'Mashiach ad lifnei Agula. We have to know that there is the existence of the revelation of Nevuah by Mashiach before the Geula. Why? Also, me'ein b'aschala yotzai k'b'aschila. As a preparation, a taste of yotzai k'b'aschila, the shleimus of the revelation of Nevuah after the Geula. That means, es is nicht kein Chiddush, was wird sich äußern erst nach der Geula. There's nothing brand new will happen after the Geula. It has already begun. The Chala B'zeh, the beginning of it, was achieved already on the level of Yotzai B'Tchila, and therefore the Rambam writes in his Sefer Halachos, and the Rambam writes also halachas that will be in Yemaisa Mashiach, this beginning of Nevuah, which helps us explain the last few generations, and this generation especially, that according to the Hachraz and Naidah of the Friedrich Rebbe and the Sidorenu, hat man schon alt verendigt, like alles im we've completed everything according to all the signs. Also shown by the letzte Regaim von der Geula, we are at the last seconds of the Geula. And we have the main Nevuah, Hini ze Mashiach kvar ba. So there's more to say on this, but for another time. Just how practical is that? Is that practically relevant now, today? The answer is 1,000,000% yes. How do we know? This is what the Rebbeim say. And this is what the Rebbe is delineating piece by piece by piece in the Sicha. And there's more to it, which we'll do in our next episode.
Okay.
And we look forward to the full revelation of the Nevuah. Hinei ze Mashiach ba'u kvar ba. We look forward to the kvar ba, that Mashiach is fully here, and the Geula that is included in Mashiach is fully here, and permeates every one of us, and permeates every corner of the world. This is what we're looking forward to. And clearly, we have an exciting Avaida to do, to make the world a vessel for this incredible revelation that's begging to permeate every molecule of the world. So everything we do becomes ultimately significant. If even though sometimes we feel like, what am I accomplishing anyway? Every blade of grass we come into contact with somehow is saying, get me ready for the revelations of Mashiach. Get me ready for Yemaisa Mashiach. You're here now, looking at this blade of grass. You are given the schus. Speak words of Torah, do a mitzvah, think holy thoughts. Include us. May we find ourselves included in the Kula Mitzvah Shlema immediately now.